During the Christmas basket distribution, my daughter said, "Give one to my mother too. She lives off donations." I smiled and waited for the coordinator to thank whoever was supporting the project. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I was standing in the back of the community center, watching volunteers hand out festive red and green baskets filled with holiday essentials. The room buzzed with gratitude and warmth, children running between folding tables while parents accepted their gifts with grateful nods. This was my favorite day of the year, though no one in the room knew why. That's when I saw Evelyn walk in. My daughter, now 42, elegant in her tailored coat and designer boots that probably cost more than most recipients' monthly rent. She wasn't supposed to be here today. She'd made it clear years ago that my charity obsession embarrassed her. "Mom? What are you doing here?" Her voice carried across the room, drawing curious glances. I felt my chest tighten but managed to smile. "Just helping out, dear." My hands, wrinkled from 62 years of living, fidgeted with the volunteer badge pinned to my cardigan. Evelyn's gaze swept over the room, her nose wrinkling slightly at the faded decorations and worn floors. "I was dropping off some old clothes for donation when I saw your car outside. You never mentioned you'd be here." There was accusation in her tone, as if I'd deliberately kept secrets. I hadn't, not really. I just stopped sharing parts of my life she showed no interest in. Linda approached us, clipboard in hand, her gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Brenda, we need more hands at table 3. Would you mind?" She noticed Evelyn and her face brightened. "Oh, you must be Brenda's daughter. She talks about you all the time." "Does she?" Evelyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Funny, she barely mentions this place to me." Linda looked between us, sensing the tension. "Your mother is one of our most dedicated volunteers. We couldn't do half of what we accomplish without her. If only she knew the whole truth." "That sounds like Mom," Evelyn said, her voice taking on that patronizing tone that made me feel small. Always giving away her time when she should be focusing on herself. Maybe if she did, she wouldn't be living in that tiny apartment. I felt the sting of her words but kept smiling. Evelyn had never understood my choices. To her, success meant display, bigger homes, newer cars, designer everything. I tried to teach her different values, but somewhere along the way I'd failed. A volunteer called out that we were running low on baskets, and Linda excused herself. I turned to follow, but Evelyn caught my arm. "Seriously, Mom? How long are you going to keep doing this? You're not getting any younger, and it's not like you have money to spare." I gently pulled away. "I like helping, Evelyn. It gives me purpose." She rolled her eyes, a gesture so reminiscent of her teenage years that it almost made me smile. "Almost. Purpose won't pay your bills when you can't work anymore." "I'm worried about you." Was she? Or was she worried about what others thought of her mother? The woman who lived modestly and spent her free time at community centers? A young mother approached with 2 small children, looking hesitant. Linda directed her to the basket table where I was supposed to be helping. "I should get back to work," I said. Evelyn followed me to the distribution table, watching with that same mixture of confusion and disdain as I helped hand out baskets. When the last family in line stepped forward, a woman not much younger than Evelyn, holding the hand of a wide-eyed little boy, my daughter suddenly spoke up. "Give one to my mother too. She lives off donations." The room didn't go silent. The children didn't stop playing. Music continued to drift from the old speaker in the corner. But for me, everything stopped. I stood frozen, basket in hand, as the young mother looked between us in confusion. Linda, who was checking names off her list nearby, glanced up sharply. "Evelyn," she began, a note of warning in her voice. I found my smile again somehow. "It's fine, Linda." I turned to the young mother. "This is for you. Merry Christmas." The woman thanked me and moved on, but Evelyn wasn't finished. "I'm serious," she continued, loud enough for nearby volunteers to hear. "My mother gives everything away while living like she's one step from the street herself. She should be in line for these baskets, not handing them out." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. This was the center where I'd volunteered for 15 years. These people respected me. And now my own daughter was painting me as an object of pity. I looked at Linda, silently willing her to keep our arrangement. For years she'd been the only person who knew the truth, That I wasn't just a volunteer. That the foundation funding most of these baskets, paying for this building, supporting dozens of families year-round, bore my name. Not Brenda Coleman as everyone knew me, but Brenda Winters, my maiden name, the name on my bank accounts and investment portfolios. Linda caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. She understood. The secret would remain. Your mother gives in ways that matter, was all she said to Evelyn. As we continued working, I kept waiting for the ache in my chest to subside. My own daughter thought I was pathetic. And I couldn't even tell her that the charity she mocked was mine, that the purpose she dismissed had helped hundreds of families, that I had more money than she could imagine but chose to live simply because I understood what truly mattered. I couldn't tell her because I'd kept that truth from her for too long. And now I wondered if she would ever understand who I really was. That night, after the incident at the community center, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my modest living room, surrounded by faded furniture that had seen better days. The small apartment wasn't much, but it was enough for me. Evelyn never understood why I chose to live this way. If she only knew the truth. My thoughts drifted to 25 years ago when everything changed. I was 37 then, newly widowed with a teenage daughter who blamed me for everything. Robert had died suddenly of a heart attack, leaving us with mounting debts and a mortgage we couldn't afford. What Evelyn didn't know was that her father had gambled away most of our savings before his death. We need to sell the house, I had told her, watching her face crumple with teenage rage. Dad would never make us do this. You're ruining everything, she had screamed, slamming her bedroom door. What I couldn't tell her was that the insurance payout, the one saving grace of that terrible time, was substantial. Far more substantial than anyone knew. Robert had taken out a policy during a brief period of financial responsibility, then forgotten about it while accumulating debt elsewhere. I made a decision then that would forever change our relationship. I would use just enough of the money to clear our debts and provide for Evelyn's education. The rest I would invest, secretly building wealth that would one day help others. I never wanted Evelyn to develop the entitled attitude I'd seen in so many wealthy children. I wanted her to understand the value of hard work, the importance of helping others. So I took a job as an administrative assistant, working long hours to maintain our middle-class lifestyle. I drove an aging sedan instead of buying a new car. I packed lunches instead of eating out. And every time Evelyn accused me of being cheap or embarrassing, I bit my tongue. Mom, why can't I have the designer jeans everyone's wearing? 15-year-old Evelyn had demanded. We need to be careful with money, I'd responded, knowing I could easily afford them but wanting her to understand priorities. You're just being stingy. Lisa's mom works as a secretary too, and she buys Lisa whatever she wants. Lisa's mom wasn't secretly building a foundation that would one day help hundreds of families. I had thought but never said. By the time Evelyn was applying to colleges, my investments had grown significantly. She had her heart set on an expensive East Coast university. I could have easily paid the full tuition outright, but instead I helped her apply for scholarships and took out a small parent loan to cover the difference. Why can't you just pay for it? She had asked, frustrated by the financial aid forms. It's not like you're doing anything else with your money. If she only knew that I was already anonymously funding 3 scholarships at university. Scholarships that were helping students who had far less than we did. When Evelyn met Richard in her junior year, I knew immediately he was trouble. Handsome, from a wealthy family, with the same materialistic values I had tried to steer her away from. He looked at me with barely disguised disdain when she brought him home for Christmas. Your mother lives here? I had overheard him asking her, as if my apartment was somehow shameful. I know it's embarrassing, Evelyn had whispered back. She refuses to upgrade even though she could afford something better. She's just stuck in her ways. After they married, the distance between us grew. Richard encouraged her worst assumptions about me, that I was stubborn, set in my ways, refusing to better myself out of some misplaced pride. The truth was so different. By then, my investments had multiplied, and I had established the Winters Foundation, named after my maiden name to maintain my anonymity. Your mother could try a little harder, Richard would say when he thought I couldn't hear. My mother always made sure she looked presentable, even on a budget. What he didn't know was that I could have bought his family's house 10 times over. That the budget clothes I wore were a choice, not a necessity. That every time I declined to fund their lavish lifestyle, it was because I was funding something far more important. 3 years ago, when Evelyn announced she was pregnant, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe a grandchild would bridge the gap between us, help her see what truly mattered. But the baby, a boy they named Ethan, just became another point of contention. "Mom, you really should get a better place if you expect us to visit with the baby," she had said during one of her rare visits. "This apartment isn't suitable for a child." She didn't know I had already set up a trust fund for Ethan's education. That the unsuitable apartment allowed me to donate more to family shelters that helped mothers with nowhere else to go. The only person who knew the truth was Linda. I had met her 16 years ago when she was struggling to keep the community center open. Her dedication touched me, and I anonymously donated enough to save the program. When she tracked down the source of the donation, we formed an unlikely friendship built on shared values, and her promise to keep my secret. "Why don't you tell your daughter the truth?" Linda had asked more than once. "She wouldn't understand," I always replied. "She'd just want to know why I didn't spend the money on her." But after yesterday's humiliation, I wondered if keeping the secret had been worth it. Evelyn saw me as a failure, someone to be pitted or worse, resented for not living up to her expectations. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Linda. "Brenda, are you okay? I've been worried since yesterday." I sighed, feeling the weight of decades of silence. "I'm fine." It's not the first time Evelyn has made her feelings clear. "What she said was cruel," Linda insisted. "And after everything you've done." "That's just it, Linda. She doesn't know what I've done. All she sees is a mother who could never give her what she wanted." My voice cracked slightly. "The Winters Foundation annual report came in today," Linda said, changing the subject. "The scholarship program helped 27 students this year. The housing initiative got 12 families into permanent homes. The medical fund covered treatments for 15 children." She paused. "You did that, Brenda. You." Tears welled in my eyes. "Thank you for reminding me." Maybe it's time Evelyn knew. The foundation's 25th anniversary gala is next month. You could. "No," I cut her off. "Not yet." After we hung up, I walked to my bedroom closet and pulled out an old shoebox from the top shelf. Inside were photos I rarely looked at. Evelyn's graduation, her wedding day, Ethan's birth. Moments where I stood on the periphery, always slightly apart. Beneath the photos lay a folder containing the latest statement from my financial advisor. Numbers that would shock Evelyn if she ever saw them. Wealth that could have bought her everything she ever wanted, but instead had quietly changed hundreds of lives. Was it worth it? Had I made the right choice? My phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn. "Had lunch with Richard's mother today. She just bought a vacation home in Florida. Meanwhile, my mother lives like she's one step away from a shelter. Sometimes I don't understand you at all." I stared at the message, my heart heavy with unspoken truths. What would happen if she knew? Would she finally understand? Or would she simply resent me more for the years of perceived deprivation? The foundation gala was approaching. 25 years of anonymous giving would be celebrated. And for the first time, I wondered if I should attend as myself, not just as the mysterious benefactor no one ever saw. 2 weeks after the Christmas basket incident, I received an unexpected call from Richard, Evelyn's husband. "Brenda, Evelyn's not feeling well. She needs some old photo albums for a project she's working on. Would you mind if she stopped by to pick them up tomorrow?" I was surprised. Evelyn rarely visited my apartment, claiming it depressed her to see how I lived. "Of course not. Is she all right?" "Just a cold," Richard said dismissively. "Around 10 tomorrow, then?" I spent that evening reorganizing my small living room, hiding anything that might reveal my financial status. The photo albums were dusty from disuse, filled with memories of times when Evelyn and I had been closer. I placed them on the coffee table and went to bed with a strange sense of anticipation. Evelyn arrived precisely at 10 the next morning. Her nose was slightly red, confirming her cold, but otherwise she looked immaculate as always. Designer jeans, cashmere sweater, diamond studs in her ears. "Mom," she said, giving me a perfunctory kiss on the cheek. "Thanks for digging these out. Would you like some tea?" I asked as she picked up the albums. She glanced at her watch. "I suppose I can stay for a bit. We sat in awkward silence as I prepared the tea. Evelyn flipped through one of the albums, occasionally pausing at a photograph. "You kept all these," she noted, sounding slightly surprised. "Of course I did. There are memories." I set a steaming mug before her. She paused at a photo of her 10th birthday. "I remember this. Dad was still alive. We had that big house with the cherry tree in the backyard. You loved climbing that tree." I smiled. "Your father always worried you'd fall. But you never did," she said, studying the photo. "You always said I needed to take risks or I'd never know what I was capable of." I was touched she remembered that. I still believe it. She turned the page, revealing photographs from after Robert's death. Evelyn as a sullen teenager, me looking tired but determined. Everything changed after Dad died. "Yes," I agreed quietly. "It did. You became so frugal," she said, a familiar note of criticism entering her voice. "Even when I needed things, you were always counting pennies." I bit back my usual defense. What would happen if I told her the truth? That those pennies had built something beautiful? "I was trying to teach you values, Evelyn. That happiness doesn't come from what you own." She rolled her eyes. "Says someone who's never had anything valuable." The words stung as they always did. "I should check my mail," I said abruptly, needing a moment away from her judgment. When I returned, Evelyn was no longer on the sofa. The bathroom door was open, and I heard movement in my bedroom. "Evelyn." No response. I walked toward my bedroom and froze in the doorway. The closet door was open, and my private shoebox lay on the bed, its contents scattered across the comforter. Evelyn stood by the window, holding a document, her face pale with shock. "What is this?" she whispered, turning to me. In her hand was my latest financial statement, the one showing my net worth. A figure that would have funded her luxurious lifestyle many times over. "You went through my things?" My voice was quiet but sharp. "I was looking for more photos," she said defensively, but her eyes remained fixed on the statement. "Is this real? $28 million? This can't be right." My heart raced. After decades of secrecy, the truth was exposed in the most abrupt, unplanned way possible. "It's real," I admitted finally. "But how? Where did this come from?" Her voice rose. "Have you been hiding this all this time?" She trailed off, her expression morphing from shock to anger. "While I worried about you. While I felt guilty for having nice things when you supposedly couldn't afford them." "Evelyn." "No." She cut me off, her hand shaking as she held up the statement. "You've been lying to me my entire adult life, making me feel like I needed to take care of you, like I should worry about your future." "I never asked you to worry about me," I said quietly. "You lived in this dump." She gestured wildly around the bedroom. "Driving that ancient car, wearing clothes from discount stores. Was it all some sick test? To see if I would still love you if I thought you were poor?" "No, that wasn't." "Then what? What possible reason could you have for pretending to struggle all these years?" Her eyes narrowed. "Was it punishment? For not being the daughter you wanted?" "Evelyn, please. Let me explain." But she wasn't listening. She rummaged further through the papers, pulling out documentation of the Winters Foundation. "What's this? The Winters Foundation? Why does it have your maiden name on it?" I took a deep breath. "It's my foundation. I started it after your father died." She stared at me in disbelief. "Your foundation? You've been living like this while running a foundation." "The foundation helps people who truly need it," I tried to explain. "Families in crisis, students who can't afford college." "Like I couldn't afford college," she interrupted bitterly. "I took out loans, Mom. I worked part-time jobs, when you could have just paid for everything. I wanted you to understand the value of hard work, of struggling." Her laugh was harsh. "While you secretly sat on millions. Do you have any idea how messed up that is?" She threw the papers down and began gathering her things. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped her purse, spilling its contents across the floor. "Evelyn, please. Let's talk about this calmly." "Calmly?" She whirled on me, tears streaming down her face. "You made me believe we were barely getting by. You let me think you needed my help. I defended you to Richard when he said you were pathetic." The word sliced through me. Is that what he thinks of me? What was he supposed to think? What was I supposed to think? She swiped angrily at her tears. All those times I invited you on vacations, offered to help with your rent, worried about your retirement, it was all a joke to you, wasn't it? No, Evelyn. Never. I reached for her, but she jerked away. Don't touch me. She backed toward the door. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm still your mother, I said softly. I've always been your mother. She shook her head, gathering the last of her belongings. No. My mother wouldn't have lied to me for decades. My mother wouldn't have let me believe she was struggling when she was rich all along. She paused at the door, her eyes cold. My mother would have trusted me with the truth. And then she was gone, leaving me standing amid the scattered evidence of my secret life, wondering if I'd just lost my daughter forever. 3 days after Evelyn discovered my secret, I still hadn't heard from her. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts remained unread. The silence was worse than any argument we'd ever had. I was arranging donated children's books at the community center when Linda found me. Her worried expression told me something was wrong before she even spoke. Brenda, you need to take a break. You've been here since 7 this morning. I shelved another book. I'm fine. No, you're not. She gently took the book from my hands. You're pale as a ghost and you've barely eaten all day. I hadn't told her about Evelyn's discovery, but somehow Linda always knew when something was wrong. She led me to her small office and closed the door. Talk to me, she said, settling into the chair across from me. The dam broke. I told her everything, the financial statement, Evelyn's anger, the accusations. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face. She hates me, Linda. My own daughter hates me. Linda handed me a tissue. She's shocked and hurt. Give her time. What if she never forgives me? The question that had kept me awake for 3 nights finally escaped my lips. Before Linda could answer, a wave of dizziness hit me. The room tilted and Linda's concerned face blurred. Brenda. Her voice sounded distant. Brenda, are you all right? I tried to respond, but another wave of dizziness overwhelmed me. My chest tightened painfully. The last thing I remember was Linda calling my name as darkness closed in. I woke to the steady beep of hospital monitors and the antiseptic smell of a hospital room. Linda sat beside my bed, her face drawn with worry. What happened? My voice was a rasp. You collapsed, she said, squeezing my hand. They think it was a combination of stress and... She hesitated. And what? I tried to sit up but fell back, too weak. The doctor wants to talk to you. I'll get her. Minutes later, Dr. Matthews entered. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a direct manner. Mrs. Coleman, how are you feeling? Tired. Confused. She nodded, checking my vital signs. Your collapse was primarily due to extreme stress and exhaustion, but your blood tests showed some concerning results. Your white blood cell count is elevated, and we found abnormalities in your liver function. A cold dread settled in my stomach. What does that mean? We need to run more tests to be certain, but there are indicators consistent with early-stage lymphoma. The word hung in the air between us. Cancer. I'd watched my mother die of breast cancer when I was in my 20s. The memory of her suffering flashed through my mind. How serious is it? My voice sounded strangely calm to my own ears. If it is lymphoma, you're fortunate we caught it early. The prognosis can be quite good with prompt treatment. She continued talking about tests and treatment options, but her words washed over me like white noise. All I could think about was Evelyn, my daughter, who now wanted nothing to do with me. Would I face this alone? After the doctor left, Linda returned to my side. I called Evelyn, she admitted. My heart lurched. What did she say? Linda's hesitation told me everything. She said she needed time. That she couldn't deal with this right now. I closed my eyes against a fresh wave of pain, this one having nothing to do with my physical condition. I'm so sorry, Brenda, Linda whispered, squeezing my hand. It's not your fault, I managed. You've been more family to me these past years than my own daughter. Linda stayed with me through the additional tests, the consultation with an oncologist, the preliminary treatment plan. The diagnosis was confirmed. Stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Treatable, but the road ahead would be difficult. I was discharged the next day with a folder full of information and appointments scheduled for the following week. Linda drove me home, insisting on staying to help get me settled. "You need someone here with you," she argued as she unpacked groceries she'd bought. "Especially with treatment starting soon." "I've managed on my own for years," I reminded her, though the thought of facing cancer alone terrified me. "Not this time," she said firmly. "I'm calling the center to take a leave of absence." "You can't do that. The foundation gala is in 3 weeks. They need you." Linda hesitated, then sat beside me on the couch. "About the gala. There's something I need to tell you." The tension in her voice alarmed me. "What is it?" "The Winters Foundation is facing a crisis. Our major corporate sponsor pulled out last week. Without that funding, we'll have to cut half our programs next year." My heart sank. The foundation had always operated with a mix of my personal funding and corporate donations. The latter had allowed us to expand our reach without depleting the endowment I'd established. "How much are we short?" $2 million, Linda admitted. "I've been trying to find new sponsors, but with the economy and such short notice. Normally, I would simply transfer the money from my personal accounts. But cancer treatment would be expensive even with insurance. For the first time in decades, I needed to be careful with my finances." "We'll figure something out," I assured her, though worry gnawed at me. After Linda left, promising to return the next morning, I sat alone in my apartment, the weight of everything crushing down. My health, my daughter, the foundation, all were in jeopardy simultaneously. I picked up my phone and, against my better judgment, called Evelyn again. To my surprise, she answered on the 3rd ring. "Mom." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Evelyn." My own voice cracked with relief just hearing hers. "Thank you for answering. What do you want?" The coldness in her tone cut deep. How did I tell my estranged daughter I had cancer? That I was scared? That I needed her? "I wanted to hear your voice." A long silence followed. "Is that all?" I swallowed hard. "No. There's something else. Something important." "Let me guess. More secrets you've been keeping." "Evelyn, please." "I'm sick." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Another silence. "Sick how?" "I have lymphoma." "Cancer." Saying it aloud made it terrifyingly real. I heard her sharp intake of breath. For a moment, I thought I'd broken through the wall between us. Then, "I need to process this. I can't talk about this right now." "Evelyn." "I'll call you." And then she was gone, the line dead in my hand. I sank back into the couch, exhaustion overwhelming me. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. "Rest. Doctor's orders. I'll bring breakfast tomorrow." Outside my window, rain began to fall, droplets racing down the glass like tears. Everything I'd built, my relationship with my daughter, my health, the foundation, seemed to be slipping through my fingers all at once. As darkness fell, I curled up on my bed, allowing myself to do something I hadn't done in years. I cried myself to sleep. My first chemotherapy session fell on a Tuesday morning. Linda insisted on driving me. Waiting in the uncomfortable hospital chair while poison dripped into my veins to fight the poison already there. The side effects hadn't hit yet, but the oncologist had prepared me for what was coming. Nausea, fatigue, hair loss. Small prices to pay for a chance at more years. "Any word from Evelyn?" Linda asked as we drove back to my apartment. I shook my head. "It's been 2 weeks since I told her about the diagnosis." "Nothing." Linda's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "I'm sorry, but that's unacceptable. She's your daughter." "She's hurt and confused," I said, though my heart ached at Evelyn's continued silence. I kept a massive secret from her for decades. I can't blame her for being angry. "Anger doesn't excuse abandoning you when you have cancer," Linda countered, pulling into the parking space in front of my building. Inside my apartment, I sank onto the couch, already feeling the fatigue the doctor had warned about. Linda busied herself making tea, her movements efficient and purposeful. "The foundation gala is next week," she mentioned casually. "The board still hopes you'll reconsider attending." I sighed. "Linda, we've discussed this. I'm not ready to go public, especially now." I gestured vaguely at myself, knowing the treatments would soon take a visible toll. "It might be exactly what the foundation needs," she persisted. A public face. A story. People connect with stories, Brenda, not anonymous donors. My story isn't inspiring right now. I'm a mother whose daughter won't speak to her, a philanthropist whose foundation is in financial trouble, and a cancer patient who's terrified of what's coming. My voice caught on the last words. Linda sat beside me, her expression softening. That's exactly why it's powerful. You've helped so many people, Brenda. Maybe it's time to let people help you. I shook my head, too tired to argue further. After Linda left, promising to check on me later, I stared at the blank wall, my thoughts circling back to Evelyn. I needed to try once more to reach her, but not with a phone call she could ignore. I pulled out a pen and paper and began to write. Dear Evelyn, *, by now, you know I have cancer. What you don't know is the story behind the secrets I've kept. I owe you that story, whether or not you choose to forgive me afterward. *, when your father died, he left us with far more debt than you ever knew. The insurance money should have barely covered those debts, but I was fortunate, investments performed well, and suddenly I had more money than I'd ever imagined possible. *, I made a choice then that shaped both our lives. I decided not to tell you about the money, not because I didn't trust you, but because I'd watched wealth change people. I'd seen friends' children grow entitled, expecting life to hand them everything without effort. I didn't want that for you. I wanted you to develop your own strength, your own resilience. *, was I wrong? Looking back now, perhaps I was. The lessons I thought I was teaching may have instead created a rift between us. For that I am deeply sorry. *, the foundation began small. Scholarships for a few students, help for families facing eviction. It grew beyond anything I'd imagined. Every time I drove my old car or shopped at discount stores, I reminded myself that those sacrifices allowed me to help more families escape poverty, more children attend college, more mothers keep roofs over their children's heads. *, I never intended to hurt you, or make you feel responsible for me. I thought I was protecting you from the burden of wealth, while teaching you to value what truly matters. Instead, I created a different burden, a daughter who worried needlessly about her mother's financial security. *, now I face the greatest challenge of my life, and I find myself wishing I had made different choices. Not about the foundation or living simply, those choices help thousands of people, but about honesty with you. You deserve to know the truth to make your own decisions about how to relate to wealth and privilege. *, the foundation is struggling now, just as my health is. Without a major infusion of funds, programs that help hundreds of families will be cut. I don't tell you this to burden you, but because you deserve the complete truth now. *, my treatment begins today. The doctors are optimistic, but the road ahead is uncertain. I understand if you're not ready to forgive me, but I hope someday you'll understand that every choice I made, however misguided, came from love. *, I hope someday you'll be proud of what your mother built, even if it came at the cost of our relationship. The Foundation's gala is next Friday at the Riverside Hotel. I've never attended as myself, always watching from the shadows as others celebrated the Foundation's work. This year may be my last chance to step into the light. *, I love you, Evelyn. I always have and I always will. *, Mom. I sealed the letter with trembling hands and texted Linda to ask if she would deliver it. She responded immediately. *, of course. I'll take it right now. *, the next morning I woke to the nausea the doctors had warned about. I barely made it to the bathroom before my stomach emptied itself. The face in the mirror afterward was pale and drawn, with dark circles under my eyes. This was only the beginning, I knew. My phone pinged with a text from Linda. * delivered your letter. She took it but didn't say anything. I'm heading to a Foundation emergency meeting. We'll call later. * I felt a glimmer of hope that Evelyn had at least accepted the letter, though I knew better than to expect an immediate response. The Foundation's emergency meeting worried me, but I was too exhausted to dwell on it. I crawled back into bed and fell into a fitful sleep. The sound of my doorbell jerked me awake hours later. Groggily, I made my way to the door, expecting Linda with groceries or perhaps my neighbor checking on me. Instead, I found Evelyn standing in the hallway, My letter clutched in her hand, her eyes red from crying. "You have cancer," she said, her voice breaking. "And you didn't even tell me in person. You wouldn't answer my calls," I reminded her gently. She pushed past me into the apartment, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. Not as a shabby apartment but as a deliberate choice. "You wrote that the foundation is in trouble," she said, turning to face me. "How bad is it?" "Without new funding, half the programs will be cut next year." She nodded absently, pacing the small living room. "And your treatment? What did the doctors say exactly?" "Stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The prognosis is good with aggressive treatment, but..." I hesitated. "There are no guarantees." Evelyn stopped pacing, finally looking directly at me. Her expression held something I hadn't seen in years: vulnerability. "I'm still angry," she said quietly. "I don't know if I can forgive you for all the lies." "I understand," I whispered, though the words pierced my heart. "But..." She took a deep breath. "I'm not going to let you face cancer alone." Before I could respond, another wave of nausea hit me. I rushed to the bathroom, humiliated that Evelyn was witnessing my weakness. To my surprise, I felt her hand on my back, holding my hair as I retched. When it passed, she handed me a damp washcloth without comment. "The gala," she said as I wiped my face. "You're going." "We're going." It wasn't a question. "Evelyn, I can't." "You can and you will." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "It's time everyone knew who Brenda Winters really is." I stared at my daughter, the strong woman I'd raised, realizing with a mixture of pride and sadness that she'd inherited my stubbornness. "You don't have to do this," I said softly. "Yes, I do." She straightened her shoulders. "Now, where do you keep your medications? And when's your next appointment? I need to know everything." As she bustled around my small apartment, making notes and organizing my prescriptions, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time: the comfort of being cared for. My daughter might not have forgiven me yet, but she was here. For now, that was enough. The night of the Winters Foundation Gala arrived with a surprising clarity to the air. It was early autumn, when summer's stifling heat finally gives way to gentler breezes. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at me. Evelyn had insisted on buying me a new dress, midnight blue with subtle beading that caught the light. My hair, thinning but not yet gone from the treatments, had been styled to disguise the loss. Evelyn had even applied makeup that somehow restored color to my pale cheeks. "You look beautiful." The past week had been a tenuous dance between us. She helped with my treatments, organized my medications, drove me to appointments, all while maintaining an emotional distance. The wounds were still raw, the forgiveness not yet complete. But she was trying and so was I. "I'm nervous," I admitted, smoothing the unfamiliar fabric of the expensive dress. "I've never been to one of these as myself." Evelyn's eyes met mine in the mirror. 25 years of hiding. That ends tonight. The Riverside Hotel ballroom had been transformed for the occasion. Crystal chandeliers reflected off elegant table settings, while displays around the room showcased the foundation's work. Photographs of families helped, scholarship recipients, community programs funded. A large banner proclaimed the Winters Foundation, 25 years of changing lives. Linda met us at the entrance, her face brightening when she saw me. "You came," she said, embracing me carefully. "And you look wonderful." She insisted. I nodded toward Evelyn, who was surveying the room with an assessing gaze. "Thank God someone got through to you." Linda squeezed my hand. "Are you ready for this?" I wasn't. How could anyone be ready to step from decades of shadows into blinding light? But I nodded anyway. We moved through the room slowly, my energy still limited from the treatments. People nodded politely, not recognizing me as anyone important. I was just another guest to them, perhaps a donor or community partner. At our table near the front, I found a program with the evening's agenda. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the final item. Special announcement. Introduction of Brenda Winters, founder. "Linda," I hissed. "What is this?" She had the grace to look slightly guilty. "A necessary surprise. The foundation needs its founder to be known, especially now. You should have told me. Would you have come if I had?" Before I could answer, the lights dimmed, and the program began. I sat rigid through the opening remarks, the video presentation of the foundation's work, the testimonials from families whose lives had been changed. Every word heightened my anxiety about the moment my name would be called. Beside me, Evelyn remained silent, her face unreadable as she learned more about the extent of the foundation's impact. When a young woman took the stage to describe how a Winters Foundation scholarship had allowed her to become the first doctor in her family, I saw Evelyn blink back tears. Finally, Linda approached the podium for the closing remarks. For 25 years, she began, the Winters Foundation has operated under the guidance of a founder who chose to remain anonymous. Her generosity has changed thousands of lives, yet she has never sought recognition or praise. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain everyone could hear it. Tonight that changes, Linda continued. Not because she wants the spotlight, but because the foundation faces a critical funding shortage. Programs that help families escape poverty, that send deserving students to college, that provide medical care to children, all are at risk without immediate support. A ripple of concerned murmurs swept through the crowd. The woman I'm about to introduce built this foundation from personal tragedy. When her husband died, leaving her with a teenage daughter and unexpected wealth, she made a choice that would impact countless lives. She chose to live simply so others could simply live. Linda's gaze found me in the crowd, her eyes warm with encouragement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and heart of the Winters Foundation, my dear friend Brenda Coleman, known in foundation documents as Brenda Winters. Stunned silence fell as all eyes turned to me. My legs trembled as I stood, Evelyn rising beside me, her hand finding mine in a gesture of solidarity that nearly broke my composure. The walk to the podium seemed endless. When I finally stood before the microphone, facing a room full of strangers now watching me with astonishment, I feared my voice would fail me entirely. Thank you, I began softly, for supporting work that has meant everything to me. I hadn't prepared a speech, but as I looked out at the expectant faces, words began to flow, about growing up poor, about wanting to give quietly without humiliating those in need, about the joy of seeing lives transformed. The foundation has operated in anonymity because I believe the focus should be on the work, not the donor, I explained. But I was wrong. People connect with stories with faces. My story is simple. I was blessed with unexpected resources and wanted to use them to create opportunities for others. I paused, gathering strength for what came next. What many of you don't know is that the foundation now faces a crisis at the same time that I face a personal one. I was recently diagnosed with lymphoma. Gasps rippled through the audience. I saw Linda's eyes widen. She hadn't expected me to share this. I don't tell you this for sympathy, I continued, but because it represents a crossroads. The foundation needs significant new funding to continue its programs, and for the first time, I cannot simply provide it myself. My resources must now be directed toward medical treatments with uncertain outcomes. My voice wavered slightly. Evelyn stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on my back. This is my daughter, Evelyn, I said, drawing her beside me. Until recently, even she didn't know about my role with the foundation. I kept my wealth and my work secret, believing I was teaching her valuable lessons about privilege and responsibility. I turned to look at her directly. I realize now that my greatest mistake was not trusting you with the truth. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really just controlling you. For that, I am deeply sorry. Tears glistened in Evelyn's eyes, but she stood straight beside me, her chin lifted with a pride I hadn't seen before. Turning back to the audience, I finished simply. Tonight, I'm asking for your help to sustain what we've built together. Not for me, but for the families and students and communities who depend on these programs. Thank you. The applause was thunderous, startling in its intensity. As we returned to our seats, people stopped us at every table, to shake my hand, to share how the foundation had helped them or someone they knew, to press business cards into my palm with promises of support. Later that night, as Evelyn drove me home, a comfortable silence settled between us. I was exhausted but strangely peaceful. The foundation will be okay, Evelyn said finally. Richard's company alone pledged enough to cover next year's shortfall. I turned to her in surprise. Richard? But I thought. He was impressed, she said simply. We all were. At my apartment door, I expected Evelyn to say goodnight and leave as she had all week. Instead, she followed me inside. I need to say something, she began, pacing the small living room. I'm still hurt that you didn't trust me with the truth, that you let me believe we were struggling when we weren't. I nodded, accepting the pain in her words. But, she continued, I understand why you did it. I saw how people looked at you tonight, with respect not because of your money, but because of what you built. She stopped pacing and faced me directly. I don't know if I would have understood that lesson if you just told me about the money when I was younger. I probably would have just wanted to spend it. We'll never know, I said softly. No. She took a deep breath. But what I do know is that I don't want to waste whatever time we have left being angry. I want to know my mother, the real one, not the version you thought I needed to see. The real me isn't so different, I told her. Just richer. A surprising sound escaped her, laughter genuine and warm. And apparently funny. Who knew? I laughed too, the tension between us dissolving further. Then, unexpectedly, Evelyn closed the distance between us and hugged me gently, mindful of my weakened state. I'm staying here tonight, she said when she pulled away. And we're going house hunting tomorrow. Evelyn. No arguments. You need a place with a proper bedroom for when I stay over to help after your treatments. And maybe a yard where Ethan can play when he visits his grandmother. Her words, so casually including herself and my grandson in my future, filled my heart with hope I hadn't dared to feel in years. I'd like that, I said simply. Later, as I drifted toward sleep, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The choices made with love but flawed understanding. The secrets kept too long. The eventual truth that had both wounded and healed. My illness remained a daunting challenge, its outcome uncertain. But for the first time in decades, I wasn't facing the future alone. My daughter knew me, truly knew me, and had chosen to stay anyway. Some lessons couldn't be taught through careful planning or deliberate withholding. They could only be learned through living, through mistakes, through forgiveness. In losing my secrets, I had found something far more valuable. A second chance at the relationship I'd always wanted with my daughter. Whatever time I had left, whether months or years, would be rich in the ways that truly mattered. As Brenda Coleman. As Brenda Winters. Simply as myself.